He walked into the courtroom like he owned it, because in his mind, he owned everything. Designer Italian suit that cost more than most people's cars. Platinum cufflinks catching the light. Phone in hand, already talking to someone about a deal while the bailiff tried to get his attention. When Judge Caprio finally got him to approach the bench and asked about the red light violation, he didn't apologize. He smirked and said, "Your Honor, I'm worth $1.8 billion. I own half the buildings in this city. I own people like you." The courtroom went silent. Judge Caprio waited 5 long seconds. Then he delivered a response so powerful, so perfectly calibrated, that it would be replayed millions of times. This billionaire thought his money could buy immunity from consequences. He was about to learn that respect can't be purchased. Before we show you exactly what happened when unlimited wealth met immovable integrity, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. If you love Judge Caprio's unwavering commitment to equal justice for all, please support our new channel Order in Court Stories by hitting that subscribe button and giving us a like. We're just beginning this journey, and every subscription helps us share more powerful moments where character matters more than bank accounts. Your support means everything as we build this community together. Providence Municipal Court, Friday morning, January 17th, 10:45 a.m. The winter sun struggled through gray clouds, casting pale light across the courthouse. Inside, Judge Frank Caprio had been working through the morning docket with his characteristic patience when the bailiff called a case that would become legendary. Westbrook Richard, citation number 2025-22789. Red light violation, Federal Hill, December 19th. The courtroom doors opened, and in walked Richard Montgomery Westbrook III, 54 years old, looking like money incarnate. Brioni suit in navy blue, probably $6,000. Hermes tie, watch that was unmistakably a Patek Philippe, the kind that costs more than a house. Italian leather shoes polished to a mirror shine. Hair perfectly styled with that expensive silver at the temples that suggested distinguished wisdom earned through success. But it wasn't just his clothes. It was his demeanor. He walked with the absolute certainty of someone who'd spent decades having every door opened, every obstacle removed, every problem solved with a phone call or a check. He was still on his phone, talking about a development deal, gesturing with his free hand. Behind him, looking significantly uncomfortable, was his attorney, James Crawford, 60, senior partner at Providence's most expensive law firm. James had represented the Westbrook family for 20 years and wore the weary expression of someone who knew this wasn't going to go well. The bailiff called Richard's name 3 times before he finally acknowledged it, holding up one finger in a just-a-minute gesture while finishing his call. Several people in the gallery exchanged looks. An elderly woman shook her head. A postal worker crossed his arms. Richard finally pocketed his phone and approached the podium with the unhurried stride of someone who believed the court should be grateful for his time. Judge Caprio looked up from his paperwork. His expression was neutral, but anyone who knew him recognized the slight tightening around his eyes. That look that meant he'd already assessed the defendant and wasn't pleased with what he saw. "Good morning, Mr. Westbrook. Please state your full name for the record." Richard's voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of someone who'd given thousands of interviews and speeches. "Richard Montgomery Westbrook III, CEO of Westbrook Development Corporation." "Thank you, Mr. Westbrook. You're here regarding a red light violation on December 19th at the intersection of Atwells Avenue and Dean Street in Federal Hill. According to the officer's report, you ran a red light at approximately 8:47 p.m. Is this accurate?" Richard smiled, the kind of indulgent smile powerful people give when they think something is beneath their concern. "Your Honor, I may have entered the intersection during a yellow light that turned red. It's a timing issue. These lights are calibrated poorly. The city knows it, but doesn't fix them because the tickets generate revenue. Judge Caprio consulted the citation. The officer's report states the light had been red for approximately 3 seconds when you entered the intersection. That's not a yellow light timing issue, Mr. Westbrook. That's running a red light. Officers make mistakes. They estimate. 3 seconds, 1 second, it's all subjective. His attorney touched his arm. Richard, perhaps we should... Richard pulled his arm away. I've got this, James. The judge is a reasonable man. He turned back to Judge Caprio with that same smooth confidence. Your Honor, I think we can resolve this quickly. The fine is $85, correct? I'll pay double. Call it a donation to the court. Let's all move on with our day. The courtroom stirred. Quiet murmurs. Someone whispered, "Did he just try to bribe the judge?" Judge Caprio's expression didn't change, but his voice carried a new edge. Mr. Westbrook, fines aren't negotiable. And this isn't about money. This is about following traffic laws designed to keep people safe. Richard chuckled, actually chuckled, like the judge had said something adorably naive. Your Honor, with all respect, everything's about money. That's how the world works. I've built an empire understanding that simple truth. The fine is $85 because that's what the city decided generates optimal revenue without causing public backlash. It's economics. It's public safety. It's both. Look, I employ 200 people. I pay millions in taxes. I've developed properties that brought billions in economic activity to this state. Surely we can acknowledge that someone at my level of contribution to society shouldn't be penalized for a minor timing discrepancy at a traffic light. Judge Caprio leaned forward slightly. Mr. Westbrook, are you suggesting that wealthy people should be exempt from traffic laws? I'm suggesting that one-size-fits-all enforcement doesn't account for individual circumstances and contributions. Yes. The courtroom exploded in whispers. Someone gasped. The postal worker in the third row stood up briefly before the bailiff gestured for him to sit. Richard seemed oblivious to the reaction, or perhaps he simply didn't care. Judge Caprio's voice remained calm. Mr. Westbrook, the law applies equally to everyone. A billionaire running a red light is no different than anyone else running a red light. Richard's smile faded slightly. His voice took on an edge. Your Honor, I don't think you understand who you're talking to. I own property worth over $1.8 billion. I have buildings in 12 states. I've met with presidents. Senators call me for advice. I'm not some random person off the street. In this courtroom, Mr. Westbrook, that's exactly what you are. A person who violated traffic law. I'm a person who contributes more to this city in tax revenue in 1 year than you'll earn in your entire career. The courtroom went absolutely silent. Even the court reporter's fingers froze over her keyboard. Judge Caprio didn't react immediately. He simply looked at Richard Westbrook for a long, measuring moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but carrying through the silent courtroom like thunder. Mr. Westbrook, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Richard opened his mouth to respond, but Judge Caprio raised one hand. Be quiet. You've said enough. The billionaire's face flushed, clearly unused to being told to be quiet by anyone. You walked into this courtroom believing your wealth makes you special. You suggested paying double the fine as though justice is a business transaction. You compared your contributions to my salary as if that matters. And just now, you told me, in front of everyone here, that your money makes you more important than other people. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Let me be very clear. Your $1.8 billion means nothing in this courtroom. Your buildings mean nothing. Your meetings with presidents mean nothing. What matters is that you ran a red light. You endangered other drivers. And you stand before me showing zero respect for the law, for this court, or for your fellow citizens. Richard tried to speak. Your Honor, I said be quiet. The words hung in the air. Richard Westbrook, a man who gave orders to thousands, who negotiated billion-dollar deals, who'd never been silenced by anyone, stood frozen. Judge Caprio continued. You mentioned that you own people like me. Let me correct that misconception. You don't own anyone, Mr. Westbrook. You employ people. You do business with people. But you don't own people. That kind of thinking ended in 1865. The gallery erupted in quiet applause. The bailiff had to call for order. Richard's face had gone from flushed to pale. You know what I see when I look at you, Mr. Westbrook? I see someone who has confused wealth with worth. Someone who thinks money is the measure of a human being. Someone who spent so long at the top that he's forgotten what it's like to be treated like everyone else. Judge Caprio picked up his phone. Bailiff Rodriguez, please pull Mr. Westbrook's driving record. I want to see if this attitude extends beyond today. 20 minutes passed. Richard stood at the podium, no longer confident, no longer smooth. His attorney whispered urgently, but Richard barely responded. The courtroom remained packed. No one left. This had become about more than a traffic ticket. Bailiff Rodriguez returned with printed records. Judge Caprio read in silence, his expression growing darker with each page. Mr. Westbrook, in the past 10 years, you've received 14 traffic citations. 14. 6 for speeding. 4 for illegal parking. 2 for failure to yield. And 2 previous red light violations. Richard's voice was quieter now. I drive frequently. Sometimes I make mistakes. These aren't mistakes. These are patterns. And according to these records, you've paid every fine immediately, never appeared in court, never faced any real consequences. You've treated traffic laws like minor business expenses. I paid what I owed. You paid money, but you never learned anything. You never had to stand in front of a judge and hear that your actions endangered people. You just wrote checks and moved on. Judge Caprio picked up another document. There's something else here. In 2019, one of your vehicles was involved in an accident. The driver claimed you ordered him to run a red light because you were late for a meeting. Is this accurate? Richard's attorney stood quickly. Your Honor, that matter was settled. The terms are confidential. I'm not asking about settlement terms. I'm asking if it happened. Mr. Westbrook, did you order your driver to run a red light? Silence. Mr. Westbrook, answer the question. I may have expressed urgency about arriving on time. How my driver interpreted that is his responsibility. You didn't answer the question. Did you tell him to run the light? Richard's voice was barely audible. I told him we couldn't be late. He made his own choices. Judge Caprio shook his head slowly. Mr. Westbrook, that accident injured a 42-year-old woman named Patricia Santos. She was driving her daughter to violin lessons. Your driver ran a red light, hit her vehicle, and she spent 4 days in the hospital with a concussion and broken ribs. And you're telling me you're not responsible because your driver made his own choices? The courtroom was silent, except for muffled crying from someone in the gallery. Richard looked at the floor. Do you know what Patricia Santos does for a living, Mr. Westbrook? No, Your Honor. She's a janitor. She cleans office buildings at night. She makes $28,000 a year. She couldn't work for 6 weeks after that accident. She lost income she desperately needed. And your company settled quickly and quietly to avoid publicity. Judge Caprio's voice carried a weight now that made everyone in the courtroom lean forward. You told me you own people like me. You told me your contributions to society matter more than traffic laws. But what have you actually contributed, Mr. Westbrook? Buildings? Money? Those aren't contributions to society. Those are business transactions that made you wealthy. He gestured toward the gallery. Patricia Santos contributes more to society than you do. She keeps buildings clean so people can work in healthy environments. The postal worker in the third row contributes more than you do. He makes sure people get their medicines, their bills, their birthday cards from grandchildren. Every person in this courtroom who treats others with basic human dignity contributes more than you do. Richard's hands were shaking now. Your Honor, I apologize. I spoke out of turn. I was disrespectful. I'll pay whatever fine you think is appropriate. This isn't about money anymore, Mr. Westbrook. This is about teaching you something your billions couldn't buy. Humility. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel. Your red light violation fine is $85. For your contempt of court, your disrespectful behavior, and your complete lack of remorse, I'm adding $5,000 in additional fines. Richard gasped, but didn't speak. Furthermore, you're sentenced to 50 hours of community service, not at your company's charity foundation where you can write checks and take photos for press releases. You're going to serve meals at the Trinity Soup Kitchen. You're going to wash dishes. You're going to mop floors. You're going to work alongside the people you've never noticed because they don't have billions. Your Honor, I have businesses to run, board meetings. I can't. You'll find the time. And Mr. Westbrook, if you fail to complete these hours, or if you send someone else in your place, or if you try to write a check to make this go away, I will hold you in contempt and you will spend 30 days in county jail. Do I make myself clear? Richard nodded, unable to speak. I need a verbal response. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Caprio leaned back. Mr. Westbrook, you came here believing your wealth elevated you above other people. But wealth without character is just numbers in a bank account. You've built an empire, but you've forgotten how to be a decent human being. These 50 hours won't make you a better person automatically. But maybe, just maybe, when you're washing dishes next to someone who's homeless, someone who's struggling, someone who treats you with more dignity than you've shown them, you'll remember that humanity isn't measured in dollars. The gavel fell with a sharp crack that echoed like a gunshot. Court is adjourned. Richard Westbrook stood frozen as the courtroom emptied around him. His attorney gathered files in silence. The billionaire who'd walked in thinking he owned the room was leaving humbled, sentenced, and stripped of the only armor he'd ever known, his wealth. 2 weeks later, Richard Westbrook showed up at Trinity Soup Kitchen wearing jeans and a plain shirt. The coordinator, a woman named Sarah, who'd been homeless herself years ago, showed him to the dish room. You'll be working with Miguel. He'll teach you the routine. Miguel was 67, formerly homeless, now housed and working part-time at the kitchen. He looked at the billionaire and said simply, "We work hard here, but it's good work. Feeding people matters." Richard washed dishes for 4 hours that first day. His hands got raw, his back ached, and he listened to Miguel talk about his life, about losing his job, his house, his family, about living on the street, about the soup kitchen being the only place that treated him like a human being. "The people who come here," Miguel said, scrubbing a pot, "they're not different from you and me. They just had less luck, less help, less safety net. But they got dignity. You remember that." Over the next weeks, Richard washed thousands of dishes, served thousands of meals, learned the names of regular visitors, heard their stories, and slowly, something fundamental shifted in him. One evening, a man in a suit came to the soup kitchen. Richard recognized him, a city councilman he'd met at fundraisers. The councilman didn't recognize the billionaire in an apron washing dishes. "Excuse me," the councilman said to Richard. "Where's the restroom?" "Down the hall, first door on the left," Richard said. "Thanks." The councilman left without a second glance. Miguel chuckled. "He didn't know you." "No," Richard said quietly. "He didn't." "How's it feel, being invisible?" Richard was silent for a long moment. "Educational." 6 months after his court appearance, Richard Westbrook returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom. Not for a violation. He'd requested a meeting. The judge agreed to see him. "Your Honor, I wanted to thank you." Judge Caprio looked surprised. "Thank me?" "That day, when I told you I owned people like you, I believed it. I'd believed it for so long that it had become my reality. You did something no one else had done in 30 years. You told me I was wrong, and you made me face the consequences. How are the community service hours going?" "I completed the 50, then I kept going. I'm at the soup kitchen 3 days a week now. I've met people there who've taught me more about character than every business school I attended." Richard pulled out a folder. "I've also done something else. I'm funding a program to provide temporary housing for people transitioning out of homelessness. Not through my foundation, personally. And I'm not putting my name on it. It's just called Second Chances." Judge Caprio smiled slightly. "That's good, Mr. Westbrook. That's very good. I also wanted to apologize to Patricia Santos. I found out she still has medical bills from the accident. I'd like to cover them. Not as a settlement, as an apology." "Have you spoken with her?" "I tried. She doesn't want to see me. I don't blame her. But I'm going to keep trying. Because you taught me that wealth without responsibility is just selfishness with better furniture." Judge Frank Caprio kept Richard Westbrook's case file in his desk. A reminder that sometimes the best sentences don't punish, they transform. That money can build empires, but character builds legacies. That washing dishes alongside the homeless teaches more about humanity than any boardroom ever could. If you love Judge Caprio's powerful commitment to equal justice and his brilliant way of humbling arrogance while preserving dignity, please support Order in Court Stories by subscribing and hitting that like button. Your support helps us share these incredible moments where wealth meets wisdom and character triumphs over cash. What do you think? Should wealthy people who abuse their privilege face mandatory community service? Should contempt of court always include more than just fines? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story reminded you that respect can't be bought, share it with someone who needs that message. Dramatization for storytelling and education, not legal advice or reporting.